welcome to the Motorsport Coaching Podcast, sponsored by Motivate Training and Management. This is a podcast where we talk to drivers and industry experts to help you maximize your performances on and off the track. Let's get started with today's show. Hey guys, welcome to episode 84 of the Motorsport Coaching Podcast. I am your host, Melinda Risley, and today I'm joined by the very talented and beautiful Melinda Price. She's a mum and naturopath and a motorsport athlete with over 20 years driving experience in various categories. She has an amazing story that she's going to be sharing with us today. Thank you for everyone that has subscribed to this podcast. I hope you're enjoying the shows. We are coming up to our 100th episode and are looking for our 100th guest. So if you have someone that you'd like to be interviewed or you would like to be interviewed, please email us at win@motivatetraining.com.au. We also recently have updated our website. So if you haven't seen our website before, please race over to motivatetraining.com.au. And let's get started with today's show. So Melinda, welcome to the Motorsport Coaching Podcast.
Thank you. It's been a long time in the making, hasn't it?
It has been. I have been trying to track you down for a long time. Not to track you down to chat, but to obviously get you onto podcast today's interview, because you've got a fantastic story about your time in motorsports. Let's get started off. How did you get involved in motorsports?
I think probably the same way as a lot of other kids. I started racing go-karts. My dad used to race cars. And a lot of my family as well, his brothers and stuff. So I was essentially the eldest son. So as soon as I was old enough, we were off to the go-kart track after school and practicing. And as soon as I was old enough to have my race, that was pretty much our whole lives for the next 10 or 15 years.
Fantastic. So you started off in Victoria racing?
Yep.
So you did all the karting. And then what did you do after karting? What was the next kind of step?
So I karted for ages and ages, and I wanted to start racing. Formula Ford was the natural progression then, and I wanted to race. And Dad kept saying to me, he's adamant that I needed to go to university. So he said, go to uni, and when you finish uni, I'll buy you a racing car. So I fell for that one, and off I went. But in the meantime, I remember coming home from uni one day, and Mum said to me, oh, Gary Rogers called for you, because they were very good family friends of ours. So we used to spend a bit of time with them. Anyway, Gary Rogers called for you. He wants to know if you want to race at Bathurst. And I'm like, yeah, good one, Mum, very funny. But it was true. So it was the Easter Bathurst, the production car Bathurst, in a Nissan Pulsar with a bunch of other ladies. And that was my sort of introduction. So bypassed the whole open wheeler thing and had my first race in the little Nissan Pulsar out at Sandown. And just sort of things happened from there.
Now, Melinda, obviously this is audio, so people can't see you, but you really don't look like a day over 30. So tell us how long ago was this? What year are we talking about?
Well, I do have a big birthday coming up in a few months that I was debating whether to let slide or not, because I figure if it happens while you're in lockdown, in isolation, and you can't celebrate, perhaps you get to put it off for another year. But I'll be 50 this year. I know it's a big number, isn't it? So, karting would have started in the late 70s for me, and so early 90s probably when I started racing in cars.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now we know if we're at Sandown, we've done Nissan. What was the next step? So how did your relationship continue with GM? GR. GRM. We did some more racing, and we did a couple of the endurance races up at Bathurst, and that was, amazing. And just from there, I mean, the whole thing's a bit of a blur, but one thing just seemed to lead to another. Sort of one drive finished and another one started, and I was lucky enough to race out at the Super Speedway when the Auscars and NASCARs were massive, and they had the Legends category. And I drove one of those, and then just drove lots of other production cars, and then
obviously the Castrol Cougars came along, and then there was some GTP after that, and a couple of trips overseas, and it was just, it was amazing.
I love the fact how you're just like rolling over all of these major events, and for you, you've lived it, and you probably don't think much of it, or you probably don't like talking to yourself, but people are kind of like, hey, hang on, go back a few steps. There's been so many fantastic achievements, but one of those things that obviously stands out was most people know is the Castrol Cougars. So tell us a little bit about that race team and how that came about.
So that was a Castrol initiative. And they just decided to, that they wanted to try and run a car for some female competitors. So a bunch of us, and I'm not sure how they obviously approached Larry, and he said that was fine. So a bunch of us got taken out to Calder one day to do a test, and there was Karen and myself who ultimately ended up sharing the car, and then a couple of other ladies who were more sports people and had done the celebrity race and stuff like that. And we all got thrown into this, touring car, which was pretty amazing. And obviously, as a young kid growing up racing go-karts in terms of racing in Australia, driving a touring car was the top of the mountain. Yeah, so that was pretty amazing to be out there and doing that. And we all went out and, had our day and did our laps and whatever, and Karen and I sort of made the cut. So that was a pretty incredible experience. Things were a lot different back then to what they are now. But, I remember my first Bathurst, my first driver's briefing, like even just sitting there with people like Glenn Seaton and Peter Brock and Dick Johnson and people that you've watched on TV and looked up to your whole life, thinking, I can't even believe I'm in the same driver's briefing as these guys. So it was super, super cool.
Yeah, and that's so amazing. And, that for us was probably the first time that there was really women in motorsports, and people were trying to really pay attention for women competing. So what was the boys like in that room, like I say?
It was a really mixed bunch, let's say. There was quite an age differential in the other competitors. There were some that were a little bit older that probably had a little bit more of that mainstream, old school chauvinistic kind of point of view. But, the younger guys that I grew up racing go-karts with and stuff, they were very accepting. I mean, we'd all known each other for years, and to them I was just another driver. So it was a mixed bag. Some people, the younger ones embrace it and were happy for me to be there, and I think the older ones perhaps not so much.
And how did you overcome that? Like, was there any, really big discrepancies, or I don't want to say like harassment to use those kind of words, but was there any kind of, I guess, conflict or, any uneasy periods that you had to go through during that time?
Look, I've obviously had a few bad experiences, and I guess we all have those. Some things can be a little bit more complicated by being a female, but for the most part, the way that my dad brought me up and my mentality was that I was adamant to not expect to be treated any differently in any way just because I was a girl.
Yep.
And that's still my point of view now. There's no reason why women can't drive as fast as men. It's not like football or something where those big physical, things really just, make a difference. I just wanted to be one of the boys. But look, there's challenges that are unique to not being one of the boys, but for the most part, it was pretty good.
Fantastic. And what was kind of like one of your favourite moments that you had during your race career when you're at the peak of it?
My very favourite was lucky enough to go over and race at the Nürburgring.
Wow.
Yes, a few times, and I went over there and raced the Beetle with Ross Palmer and Sir Jack Brabham. So it was pretty amazing to be doing a race with Sir Jack, and even just to have my name on the same window as his name, in the same car is pretty cool. So we were up there on a practice day, and he took me for a lap of the Nürburgring. So I'm strapped into the passenger seat, and he's there driving, and he gives me a big smile as we're leaving the pits, and he says, It's not very often these days I get to make a young girl squeal.
Oh.
With this big, cheeky smile on his face. And, off we went on our lap of the Nürburgring, which is obviously a really long lap. Like in the Beetle, I think it was, 9 or 10 minutes or something like that. So he obviously knew the track really, really well.
Yeah.
And much better than me. And I felt like he was trying to, make me nervous and hold on. And I was trying to sit there with my arms folded, being all cool. And so at one point he we came up this blind hill and we went flying off the track through the grass, and I'm like, and grabbed onto the thing, and he obviously knew exactly where we were and I didn't. So we've just neatly popped up over back onto the track on the other side, and I looked over and he was in hysterics, pissing himself. Look, that's absolutely on top of it. Yeah.
How exciting, Linda. So jealous. And so you mentioned that your father said that he wasn't going to buy you a race car until you went to uni. So you kind of believed him but didn't. But you did end up going back to university. At what age was that, and why did you decide to go back to uni?
Well, so that was actually the first time. So this was I finished high school in 1988. So I did a science degree. And then I did honours in immunology, and I was doing a PhD. I was doing medical research at the Alfred, and I'd started to race as well, and it had gotten to the point where racing was starting to take off, and the Castrol thing had started, and it was really difficult to do both. I mean, they're both things that require a lot of dedication, and I kind of had to call it. So I left, didn't finish my thesis, but I left uni, and obviously pursued racing, and sort of just through that got absorbed into the automotive industry. Mm-hmm. So back then, in the Castrol Cougars days, not a lot of drivers were getting paid to drive, and there were a lot of privateers still racing and people funding their own racing. So obviously I fell into that category, but I went to work for Castrol when that started. As a sales rep in Melbourne, and obviously did a lot of, integrated promotion and stuff like that. And the same worked for Wins when they sponsored me, and that kind of continued, well after I finished racing, and then for another decade I stayed in the automotive industry. And then I was in Bateman's Bay running my own business up there, selling aftermarket and other things to car dealers, and hadn't raced for quite a long time, and then got pregnant, and then got sick, and then moved back to Melbourne, and that was kind of the start of the, leaving that behind and starting everything that's happened since then.
Fantastic. Since then.
Oh, what has happened? Yeah, so I was pregnant with Lily, and I got diagnosed with breast cancer right at the end of my pregnancy there. So, at that moment I was living in Bateman's Bay, and I just decided that everything in my world that was causing me stress was gone that day. So I pretty much just left the business that I'd spent the last 6 years building behind and came home. Obviously, having the first grandchild as well makes you want to be closer to family.
Yes.
But, that was, so I moved back to Melbourne and had treatment and stuff like that. And obviously Lily was born, and everything was wonderful there. And it was my father, actually, who was working, on a mate's historic racing car, Kim Shern's car, and they go away with the historics and stuff like that, and he'd been doing that for a long time. And Kim was overseas, and he came home one day and just said, Kim's overseas, and he said we can have a spin in the Lotus while he's away if we want to. And I'm like, what, do you mean me drive it? And he's like, yeah. And I don't know, in the blink of an eye, we were up at Winton, and, I was still very much recovering from my treatment there. And, had a lot of weight and just no strength and no hair. And it was all, I went up there and jumped in this car and drove around Winton, and it was just horrible. I couldn't drive, I couldn't change the gears, and it was just I'm driving around thinking, oh my God, I can't drive anymore. And it was awful. but we did a few more sessions, and sort of by the end of the day, things had started to fall back into place. And it just all sort of started again. Sorry, go.
I was going to say, and how long ago was that?
Well, that must have been, I don't know, it must have been about 7 years ago or something. And so that started, and then I did a couple of races in the Lotus, and I won my first race, which was pretty exciting.
Wow.
And then that led to, next minute, I got a call from, the 5 Litre Touring Car Association guys that were doing demonstration races at some of the race meetings in the touring cars from my era, and got asked to drive one of those. So then, next thing I know, I'm sitting in an old touring car again, which was pretty cool, driving around Phillip Island. So that was pretty cool. And what happened after that? I did a race in a mark car. I kind of got addicted again, obviously. So then I started sort of trying to, get sponsors and stuff like that. So I did a race in a mark car, which was really, really cool. And I did a couple of races in TCM, which was really, really awesome as well, and was lucky enough to race at Bathurst again 20 years later, 2 years ago. I hadn't been to Bathurst for, I don't know, probably since I last raced there in 2001, I think it was. And I went up there with a bunch of people and just forgot how magical the whole thing is. And I remember sitting in the car with my mate on the way home, just saying, and I'd gotten the bug and wanted to get back into racing again. And I remember saying to him, I've just put Bathurst back on the bucket list. And so somehow it all fell into place, and got, the custom plates came on board and sponsored me in TCM, and I got to go back there and race in 2017. And that was, this happened to be the 20th anniversary of the Cougars' first race there. So it was all super cool. And last year I started racing go-karts again, which I have done, since I was, a little girl, I guess. So after a few bumps and bruises and a bit of strength training, completely addicted to go-karts. Yep. And, just hoping that I might be able to, pull some budget together and race cars next year.
Fantastic. And so where are you racing karting now at the moment? Well, no one's racing at the moment, but
it's all obviously shut down for now. But the RKA, Retro Karting Australia, we had 5 events planned sort of through New South Wales and Victoria. And so they were all booked in, but sadly we've only managed to have one so far this year. And, there is another one planned for November in Geelong, which I imagine is unlikely to happen. So there's also, and again, these are, I'm obviously very retro as I say all this out loud, but these are not the new go-karts. These are the ones from, that I raced when I was a teenager. They're the same chassis that are all pre-2000 and the same engines and stuff. So super cool. And a lot of the people that I grew up racing with, as we've all come full circle and are back doing that again 20 years later. So there's also, it happens up in Queensland, which I was hoping to do a couple of races up here as well, because obviously there's nothing happening anywhere else in the country for us, but sadly the stars haven't aligned, so have to wait till next year.
Oh, so you're still very passionate about it, Melinda. So great to hear. So I always love catching up with yourself. And what do you think keeps driving your passion? What do you love about the sport?
I mean, I don't know. I had that break, and when I left, I'd been through, I'd done it my whole life. Sort of straight from karting to cars, and that was what I did. And it's just, it's what you know. And it got to the point for me where I'd had a few bad experiences and a few things, and it just got to the stage where there was more that I didn't enjoy than I did enjoy. And I had that break and went off on my merry way to take over the world and start a business and all of that. And when I came back, when Dad and I were at Winton that day and it was all unfolding and starting again, I sort of look back a year later and think, how could I have not been doing this the whole time? What was I thinking? So I think, it's part of, it's obviously just in me there, and obviously there's a few racing genes in the family, but I think it's also about the people.
Yeah.
And what I enjoy so much more this time about TCM and the retro karting and stuff is that they're my people. Now I come back and I'm choosing to do it in the category that I want to do it in with the people that I like, and I feel like that's where I belong. And every RKA meeting is like a big reunion for us. We all go back to when we were teenagers and sit there, and so it's and obviously we're all still incredibly competitive and want to win and stuff, but certainly not as fit as we were 30 years ago. But it's just now. If I have my 5 weekends away racing or whatever, they're the people that I want to spend that time with, as well as getting my rev fix. So much more enjoyable this time round.
Oh, that's fantastic. And has Melinda looked up?
Well, I hope so. I hope she's inherited no driving genes from her father at all, or else we're in a bit of trouble. He couldn't be less of a car person. No, I've taken her out to the go-kart track a couple of times down in Melbourne, just the little high kart one, and she's had a bit of a spin around. So desperately waiting for, things to be opened up again and the restrictions eased. And the first thing I'll be doing is getting her to the track, because she's 9 now and she has expressed a bit of an interest. And obviously my dad, Poppy, who was always the hard taskmaster trainer of, young karters coming through, is ready to to help her go faster and stuff. So, yeah, I can't wait to go to the track with her, and I hope she loves it.
Oh, I'm hoping my boys are going to start next year too, so we might be on some tracks again.
Absolutely. And it's funny, everybody that I know that's got kids doing it now is like, don't do it, because obviously things have changed a lot, since I was young, and it's a lot more professional and really stepped up a notch. But anyway, no, we're going to have a go and see how we go.
Fantastic. Well, I'd like to see you out there again. But you have come back. You did end up going back to uni for the 3rd time. That's right.
Sorry?
You end up going back to uni for the 3rd time to do naturopathy?
Yeah. So after I got sick and I'd finished my business and stuff, I guess I had always had a big interest in naturopathy and always seen a naturopath sort of throughout my life. And kind of in the back of my mind, it was like, if I won Tats Lotto and didn't need to work again, I think that's what I'd like to do. And it obviously didn't happen that way. But when you're 9 months pregnant and someone says you've got cancer, I guess all that matters to me is that I have this beautiful little baby who wasn't even born yet, and all I want to do is make sure I'm around for the next 40 years, 50 years, whatever, to be her mum.
Yeah.
So that is what started, all of that. Obviously a lot to just know and understand and do as much as I could to fix my personal health, and, probably spread that to the people that I know and care about as well, so I can look after them too.
Fantastic. And can you tell me more, what is it for the people who don't know?
I'm struggling to hear you, sorry.
That's all right. Isaac, can you tell us a little bit more about what it actually is for those who don't know?
Yeah, so naturopathy is natural medicine, I guess. It's, pretty much anything that you might go to your doctor with, you could see a naturopath with. Rather than treating you with pharmaceuticals and masking symptoms and things like that, we tend to, it's a very holistic approach. So we look at your body as a whole, and if there's something wrong with you, it's connected to everything else. So we try and find out what's causing that and fix the problem, rather than just sort of, put you on a pill for life or something like that. So, it's very like nutrition. The whole nutrition's obviously a big part of it. with food and exercise and stuff like that. But we have all our nutraceuticals and obviously a whole range of amazing herbal medicines and things like that. My motto is sort of becoming, every time somebody says something to me, I say, oh, we have herbs for that. So we kind of, whatever problem you've got, we can treat with herbs.
Yeah. And people like these words. So did that help you through your breast cancer?
Oh, absolutely it did. I'm sure the stress of going back to uni at the age of 40 and being a full-time student and not working, that side of it didn't. But yeah, look, the stuff that I've learnt and the education that I've got now is absolutely, I use that every day in my own, personal life. I feel like I'm fitter and healthier now probably than I've ever been, and have a huge understanding if something goes wrong of how to fix it. And it's wonderful to be able to look after, Lily or Dad or anyone in my family or any of my friends if they need something. It's really rewarding for someone to come and see you and feel horrible and then to ring you in 3 days' time and say, I feel amazing.
Yeah, I remember the girl. I was just trying to remember what was wrong with me, but I think, did I have cholesterol or something? And he maybe gave me something. I can't remember, but he definitely gave me something at the Grand Prix.
That's right. Yeah. I think you'd been smashing some echinacea and stuff, I think, because you were fighting a cold.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think we resolved that with Sauv Blanc and Chardonnay, didn't we?
We did. But anyway, and so now you've started up your own business, just Melinda Price Consultancy, offering these services not only to motorsport drivers but also to family and friends as well. How can Naturopath, I can't say the word today, can Naturopath help athletes?
Yeah, look, there's so many ways, and I feel like this is something that's been in the back of my mind. I thought I've got this newfound love of motorsport again and this naturopathy, which seem to be polar opposites. And how can I combine these two things that I'm really passionate about? But obviously health and fitness is so prominent now in, in motor racing as they are in all other sports. And so, I was thinking about it, and particularly watching David Reynolds at Bathurst even a few years ago, watching that on the TV and stuff. And I was thinking how much, obviously having the correct nutrition and diet and being fit and strong and all of those things are really, really essential. But at the end of the day, every person's different as well. And people might have food sensitivities or eat this or not that. So it's a completely different, every person is completely different. But I think there's so many other things besides that dietary and fitness thing that affect you as a race driver, particularly over a race weekend. I mean, some people might get super, super stressed and anxious and wound up. And obviously we have herbs and remedies and things like that to support your nervous system to stop that from happening. Some people have issues with sleep and some people don't. There's things for cognition enhancing and stuff like that. And obviously if you're stressed or anxious, it affects your digestion. So everything's connected. So I think by analysing what people go through on a very individual basis over the course of the whole weekend, and knowing their health history, you can really make sure that every single part of them is in the best shape it can be.
And how have you overcome, I guess, people having their own thoughts and opinion on this service? So people might think that it's, like all witchcraft or it's just for...
Well, yeah, it's certainly, we're certainly not, running around sprinkling pixie dust and clapping our hands 3 times or something like that. But, there's always, you're never going to be able to please everybody. And in my opinion, the proof's in the pudding. There's a few drivers and people that I've been training for a while already that have had amazing results. And, it's not going to be for everybody, and that's fine. But, naturopathy now is very scientifically based. There's a lot of research into natural remedies and stuff like that, and there's a lot of evidence to support the efficacy of the things that we use. So it's certainly not, it's much less fluff and tickle than than what it used to be.
Well, I was just putting it out there because I know people probably might be like rolling their eyes going, really? So I just wanted to try.
And people don't understand often what it is that you do. And so there's just that association with a word of having no idea what it really means. But, that's, I guess, part of my job is to get the message out there of what it is that I actually do and, fight those wars. And like I said, the proof is in the pudding.
It is. And how can people access your services? I can't talk today.
I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook and Instagram. I have a new Melinda Price Naturopath page on Facebook and on Instagram. So, just touch base, shout out.
Yeah, and we'll make sure Melinda's links are in today's show notes. So if you guys are wanting something a little bit different, maybe worked with a nutritional dietitian before, you haven't really found success, or maybe you haven't even looked into that aspect of your racing, maybe look at Melinda and see what she can do for you. What's involved in a consult, Melinda? Talk us through when people do make contact with you.
So an initial consult would normally go for about an hour to an hour and a half, and it depends on, how complex the situation is and what people are wanting to achieve. But we take a very, very thorough history of everybody's health. So anything that's ever happened, sort of from broken bones to chicken pox, the whole way through, to get a really good understanding of what their body's been through and where they might be at. So it's just really me asking a whole heap of really probing, invasive questions about all sorts of things. And then I go away and put all that together and come up with a treatment plan, which is normally a few pages long, that I then email out with my recommended prescription as well. And we, start doing whatever it is that we've decided to do and sort of just constantly reevaluate that. I mean, the thing is that, the end goal here isn't to just be on medication and take, like if you went to the doctor and had high cholesterol, here, have this tablet for the rest of your life. It's not like that. Our goal is to figure out why you've got high cholesterol and fix that so that at some point in time you don't need to take anything and that's not a problem for you anymore. So it's always an ongoing process of, hopefully just an uphill spiral of better health.
Yeah, and like you said, it's all natural, it's all organic products and service products, and it's a lot better for your health.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. There are no side effects, and obviously in terms of doping and stuff like that as well, even just treating inflammation and pain and stuff like that, we can do very, very well with herbs and nutraceuticals and stuff. So there's a particularly in sport, I think a need for that too, and where you don't have to compromise in another area by having some horrible side effect. And I think even just not race weekends, but there's a lot of work we can do in between as well, because I think our industry in general has a really high chemical exposure. Obviously, where the people working on the cars and the teams and stuff are in chemicals and grease and this and that all day long. When you're sitting in the car, you've got those petrol fumes and all sorts of things like that. So your liver and your body in general gets a fair old, hit of chemicals. So in between races and stuff like that, I think just, supporting detoxification and stuff like that to make sure everything's out of your body and you're ready for action again for the next race.
Yeah, and you see that insight there, you're just saying, I wouldn't even thought about the environment, I guess, in chemicals that, we inhale. Again, like if you're looking for that 1% performance, it's exactly what you do.
Yeah, exactly, for sure, yeah.
To make sure that you are 100%, 150% right to go on race day.
Yeah, and especially when you've got back-to-back races close together and stuff like that, like you really, So I kind of see it as a building up to a race weekend and then addressing things that affect people, like I said, everybody's different there on race weekends. And then getting all that out of your body and building yourself up again for the next one. So, yeah, I'm hoping I can sort of, get this thought bubble into some kind of a program. And like I said, the ball's rolling, but definitely keen to get out there and get a few more people involved and, get some positive results.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm a huge fan, so I'm happy to support you in any way we can over here.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for your time today, Melinda. I can't talk today. I don't know why, but I haven't had my morning coffee. I think maybe that's the issue today. But I can't let you go without asking, what has been your favourite track? Whether you're racing repeated.
Definitely the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess racing in Australia prior to having gone over there, Bathurst was my favourite track. And when I got over there, somebody asked me what it was like after my first session, and I said it's like Bathurst times 10. Like just, every combination of every type of corner and those huge long straights, and obviously the scenery is incredible, and the carousel where you drop in and pop out the other end, like just amazing. Yeah.
I've been there, but I haven't done a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely recommend it. It's back on my bucket list as well.
Fantastic. And so we've got your Facebook, you're on Facebook, Instagram, and your website is all melindaprice.com.au.
The website isn't happening yet. So yeah, just go Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook and Instagram, no worries. Well, again, Melinda, thank you very much for joining us today. And do you have any parting words for athletes or people getting started in the sport? From all your years of wisdom that you can pass on, something that your dad said, Jack Bradham, being involved in sports.
Oh, you've put me on the spot there.
I have. I just feel like you've got a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. Look, oh gosh, I wish I could think of something really intelligent to say. No, I'll think of something and I'll text it to you.
That's okay.
I'll think of something.
That's fine. We'll just read it.
I'll think of something really clever.
No worries.
I don't know.
That's all right. I'll just delete it out.
Yeah.
10:48. Beautiful. Cool. That's lovely.
Thank you. No, that was good. I get so worked up about these things, but it's all right once you get going, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, because you're just talking about what you're passionate about. And as I said, I was just giving you a platform.
Sorry, Belinda, hang on one sec, because there's just been a knock at my door, which is probably the police or a nurse. Hang on.
It's all right.
Yes, it was a policeman. No, that's all right. They drop things, people can drop you things off and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they bring things to you. Yeah. I didn't actually look at his face. Because they won't come anywhere near you, because they just drop the bag and they stand meters away with their masks on. And oh yeah, it's like I said, it's like if you make eye contact with someone, they're going to explode. And look, and I get it. That's but anyway, no. So you don't get to have much of a look. But I had my second COVID test. Had one when I got here, and I had the other one yesterday. Yeah. So waiting to hear that I'm all okay and ready to get out of here.
72 hours and counting, my love.
How many?
Won't it be like 72 hours?
Oh, yeah, I haven't even worked it out.
Something like that.
Yeah, I should start the countdown now that it's in double digits. Yeah, no, pretty exciting.
Well, but as you can... I was going to say, it looks like it's a beautiful day there. Go and grab your book and relax outside.
I do. I get sun from 7:30 until 1:30, so that's my out on the balcony time. And then I just do what I've got to do in the afternoon, because I'm determined to dedicate at least an hour a day to, which is possibly not the most naturopathic thing in the world to say, but I'm a bit all about the tan.
Well, when you come back, I might actually book in a consult for myself. I feel like now that I'm older and after COVID, and probably do some detox stuff. And
yeah, cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd really, love to. I'm going to meet with a couple of people that I know up here as well, and just try and get a few people on board and sort of work on some stuff in the background so that I can kind of figure out what path this is going to take. Yeah, I mean, my dream would be to be looking after a bunch of drivers and have to go to every race forever. I guess that's what we all want. But yeah, we'll see how we go.
All right, Dylan. Yeah, well, I'll book that in because I know you're like doing your other work for the next 2 weeks, so I'll book it in after that. After school holidays, like term 4, after school holidays, when I've got time to concentrate on me again.
Yeah. And look, we can have a chat over the phone if you want. But if you're in Melbourne and we're allowed to travel and stuff, it's nicer to do it in person. But if there's something important that you want to address before then, just let me know.
I'm going to be fat still in 4 weeks, so it's okay.
Did you say fat? I'm trying so hard because they bring you 3 meals a day. And, you can't, you're not very active. Like I try and do some exercises every morning and wander around and all that, but you can't do much. So I'm horrified about popping out the other end, really, So I rang them when I arrived and I'm like, I don't want any gluten, any bread, any cakes, any this, any that. Don't give you. All I want is like meat and vegetables and fruit. And they keep bringing me cakes like every day. I'm like, I don't want dessert. Don't give me a croissant. I don't want a cake, like no dessert. Because then you sit there and you get bored and you eat it.
And you think, I know. I hear you. It's a vicious circle.
So I've been trying so hard not to overeat because it's easy to do, isn't it, when you can't do everything else.
Yeah, well, I've been doing over 10,000 steps every day.
How many?
Over 10,000. So
good. Yep.
I've been, on average, probably doing about 12 and a half. But yeah, it's just hard, because the kids is home and.
Oh yeah, and we're all sitting on our asses doing. I'm sitting here. I've never spent this much time in front of, on my computer, just sitting there doing stuff like ever in my life. So everything just slows down when you stop moving, and it's winter.
Yeah.
So we'll all get energised now that spring's nearly here and hopefully look forward to a bit of an ease in restrictions and pop out the other end with a bit of motivation.
That's right. Motivated.
Yeah.
All right, lovely. I've got to go back to the kiddies to homeschooling. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Glad we finally did this and
yes.
Soon.
Okay, cheers.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Hey guys, Alex Gardner here, go-kart racer from Queensland. I've been with Motivate for about a year now and I've definitely benefited from her and her crew. Nutrition, social media, sponsorship, and exercise is what she helps me with. She also does mental strength as well. I'm looking forward to my journey ahead with Motivate Training.
Well, thanks everyone for listening to this week's show. I really hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. Now, remember, all the show notes with the links and the specials mentioned in today's show are available over at motivatetraining.com.au. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could head to iTunes or Stitcher, type in Motorsport Coaching, subscribe, and leave us a review. Each week, I'll read them out and you'll go into monthly draw to win a fantastic prize. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at motivatetraining.com.au or head over to our Facebook page at Motivate to Tea. Until next time, take care.